Hey there, hey, this is Anne-Marie, the anti-HR HR lady, and I decided to make a quick video this morning after reading the updated report about the situation at Lincoln University, a historically Black college and university. Some of you are probably familiar with the story of Dr. Antoinette Bonnie Candia Bailey. She is a university administrator who committed suicide in February after being fired from her job as vice president, I believe, of student affairs by the interim president of the university, who was a white male installed by the board to be interim president of a historically Black college and university. I am going to talk a little bit about my thoughts. The recent report is that the HBCU has reinstated that president after her suicide based on a investigation finding. So I'm going to share my thoughts about not just the findings from the university, but this process that they seem to have gone through and why I think it's problematic and what I think the family should do next as a result. This is not legal advice. This is just my opinion, but I am going to share it as someone who worked in HR for 20 plus years, as well as someone who is an attorney who is licensed to practice law in the United States of America. So here are my thoughts. First, I want to summarize for those of you who may not be aware of this story, and I'm also going to link in this video the video where I talked about this story when it initially broke. Okay, so Dr. Candia Bailey was an alumni of Lincoln University, a historically Black college university. And she had been working in the role of vice president for student affairs, I believe, for a little under a year. She started working there. And after her employment, I believe, they installed an interim president who was their former athletic director, a white man named John Moseley. Now, I want to pause there because for me, that's the first problem. I would like to understand why a historically Black college and university would install a former athletic director to be its president. And not only that, why a white man would be installed to be president of a historically Black college and university. And yes, I know that these colleges were initially started by white people to educate the Blacks and to keep them under control, right? And they were funded primarily by rich white people. I understand the history of all of that. But in 2024, I do not think, and this is my personal opinion, that a white person should ever be in charge of a historic Black college and university, ever. You cannot tell me that you cannot find qualified Black people to be in charge of historically Black college university in 2024. So that's, to me, the first very glaring issue that we must point out, okay? But on top of that, and I'm going to read directly from the ABC News report that I read that's covering this. So Dr. Bailey, according to report, accused Moseley of bullying, harassment, and discrimination in a letter that was found after her death. She committed suicide. She cited the work environment as a factor and its impact on her mental health as a factor. And she committed suicide in February, right? Moseley volunteers to be placed on paid leave pending an investigation by the university. So the report today is that the university has completed its report and found that it couldn't substantiate the claims by Dr. Candia Bailey and that it has decided to reinstate Moseley as the president, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about the report and investigation process that employers like to undertake when they are accused of discrimination or other wrongful conduct. There should be a red flag anytime an employer volunteers to investigate itself. And I've talked about employer investigations before, and I'll link a video in this video, and I'll link it in the description of this video, where I explain why basically any investigation conducted by an employer is bullshit. And you can't trust it as an employee and definitely not as a member of the public. Anytime an employer investigates itself, the outcome is pretty predictable. It's almost always going to be found that they did nothing wrong. They only do the investigations in order to pay someone to say that they did nothing wrong, right? Now, there are situations where that outcome might not be what they expect, where the third party might come and say they in fact did do something wrong. And that usually only happens when they hire an independent third party. And I'm going to explain in a minute why I do not believe that this report by the university can be trusted. Okay? But as I said, anytime an employer investigates itself as an employee, you should expect that whatever they come back with is going to protect them. So, according to this report, there was an independent report and findings, and they said that they could not substantiate the claims of bullying and harassment, right? So this woman literally spoke from the grave about what happened to her. And yet the university is claiming that they did nothing wrong. Surprise, surprise. As Zora Neale Hurston said, if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say that you liked it. And I'm paraphrasing. Well, I'm going to add to that and say, even when you're not silent about your pain, they will kill you, say it was your fault, and get people that look like you to protect them. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about this report. So according to this news report from ABC, just give you a little bit more background. Dr. Bailey was working at the university. She started working there in May 2023. She received a termination letter on January 3rd, 2024. The letter stated that she is terminated for cause, including allegations of insubordination and allowing an ineligible student to work, allowing ineligible students to obtain discounted housing rate, and failing to adhere to confidentiality requirements in a grievance matter filed by 2 of her subordinates. It's not for me to say whether any of these things are true or false. I'm just telling you what it says. Now, but I always see anytime any Black woman especially is accused of insubordination, that's a red flag to me. Because what does that mean anyway? Right? She was talking back. We're not supposed to talk back. We're not supposed to have an opinion. So that right there is a red flag for me right there. Okay? Now, Dr. Bailey said that in the meeting when she was fired, she couldn't even finish the meeting because they weren't listening to her. And I'm paraphrasing what is read here. And she said they harassed her and bullied her, right? And following her death, she also left a letter. So the university then announces that it's going to engage a third party to undertake an investigation of the allegations of bullying and harassment. Let's talk about who they hired to do the investigating, because I always think that this is very indicative of what you're going to get. So according to this report, and I'm looking down because I'm literally looking at my computer reading the report while I'm talking to you. The investigation team was led by an attorney, Ron Norwood, at Lewis Rice LLC, who is a member of the governing board of the university and was a past board president of an HBCU. Okay. Now, they are undertaking an independent investigation of a claim of bullying and harassment against the university, and they hired a member of their board, hired his firm to undertake an independent third-party investigation. Do you see how this is a problem? Maybe a little conflict of interest there. He's a member of the board, but he's being paid by the board to investigate the boards and the president, who is also a member of the board. The president is always a member of the board, right? Or the president, well, maybe a member of the board, but he reports to the board, right? Do you see how this might be questionable, that the board is basically hired a member of the board to investigate the university president and his actions? Because it's not just the university, the president's actions, it's the actions of the university as well. Because the president is the university and the university is the president. As I always explain to you all, this is why managers get away with the things they get away with, because their action is also the action of the employer. The employer is responsible. The president is the agent of the university. If he did something wrong, it means the university did something wrong. So to hire a member of the board to do the investigation, to me, is the biggest red flag there is. And there's no way that I would trust any report that was conducted by a member of the board. So as soon as I read this in this report, I was like, I don't trust the report, because they should have hired, if you wanted to have a reliable report that people at least would say, I believe the report, you hire a third party that has no relationship whatsoever with the university. You hire them to do the investigation. What do you think employees of the university are going to say to an investigator who works for a member of the board? And someone from the board is sitting in a room asking them questions. Do you think they're going to tell the whole truth? Or do you think they're going to be worried about their job and either be silent or say that they don't know nothing, they ain't seen nothing, and they ain't never heard nothing? Especially if these are Black employees. What do you think they're going to do? How can you trust a process when a member of the board is investigating the board? I think that's questionable, right? So when you have this member of the governing board and a past president of an HBCU investigating the behavior of the board's president, who is now the president of the HBCU, what's the likelihood that this person is going to come back and say that they did anything wrong? That's my question. So again, this process doesn't sound very reliable and trustworthy to me. That's just my personal opinion. So for when they come back and say that they did not find any substantiation to the claims, I'm not shocked by that, right? So let's talk a little bit about what I think should happen. Or one other thing I wanted to point out in the report that really bothered me is that the university, in its statement, is trying to spin this into being about mental health and wellness. So they made a comment where they said that, this is tragic. Her death was tragic, and that they want to talk more about mental health of employees. And here it is. As a board, we are committed to make certain the mental health of Lincoln University employees is a priority, and every employee is always treated with dignity and respect, right? Now, here's the reason why I don't think people should fall for that banana in the tailpipe statement. It's another gaslight. This is just straight gaslighting, in my opinion. So basically, you're saying that this is just basically saying, oh, well, this person had mental health issues, but this don't have anything to do with the university. And I have a problem with that. Why? Because we have to always interrogate not just what, but why. And this woman clearly said that the way that she was treated in her workplace impacted her mental health, right? And I think that you can't talk about mental health wellness and try to separate it from a discriminatory, hostile, toxic work environment. You have to investigate and interrogate both things. And so on one hand, you can't claim that the discriminatory, hostile, toxic work environment doesn't exist and then just want to talk about mental health and wellness. That ain't going to work. And people shouldn't let them try to get away with creating the narrative and trying to make it about just mental health and wellness. You got to talk about why the mental health and wellness issues were existing in the first place. And whether the person had an existing mental health issue or it started because of the work environment, you cannot erase the fact that there are allegations of bullying, harassment, and differential treatment, which is what was cited by the victim in this case. And even though that person is no longer alive, she clearly raised these issues. She spoke to friends and relatives about the issues, according to this report. And so do not try to dismiss it by just trying to make this about mental health and wellness and pretending that the university and its president has no responsibility for creating a work environment that resulted in mental health issues for an employee. Okay. And that's what they're trying to do by trying to separate those two issues. And I don't think that the students, the faculty, or the family of this person should allow that to happen. Now, there's another thing that I want to point out that I read in a report that got my attention. They said that Dr. Candia Bailey tried to get FMLA leave to deal with the severe anxiety and depression that she was experiencing due to her work environment, and that she was denied the leave that she requested because she had not worked at the university for a full year. And I just wanted to red flag that for you guys because, recently I did a video, which I will link in the description, about FMLA and how employers abuse it when employees ask for it. And I think it's very important as employees to understand the policies, to make sure that you can ask for FMLA if you need it. And there are other things that you can do if you don't have FMLA based on what your employee benefits package is. Like you could ask for short-term disability, which they can deny, but you could still ask for it. You could ask for long-term disability. I don't know what other options she had. But I was very upset to read that she asked for FMLA and they denied it, right? Based on how long she had been an employee. If she had a letter from her doctor and she presented and said she needed it, they should have given it to her. And I really think, might she have been here today? I don't know. But might she have been here today if they had given her the FMLA? And I really think that's something that her family should interrogate. So let's talk a little bit about what I think should happen as a result of this report, which I think, I'm going to be frank, is bullshit. I think her family should file a lawsuit against the university. Again, this is not legal advice. It's just my opinion. If it were my family member, that's what I would do. So I think they should file a wrongful death lawsuit against the university. I think they should name the president. I think they should name every member of the board. That's what I think they should do, including the guy who wrote the report. I'd sue everybody. Let the courts sort it out, right? So I really hope that the family is talking to attorneys. I hope that they will file a lawsuit against the university, because maybe that's the only way they get to the truth of it. Maybe then they get to talk to their own witnesses. They get to take their own statements. They get to engage in discovery. They get to, talk to everybody themselves through their attorneys. That is what I think that they should do. I think the university students and faculty who do not agree with what is happening, and I'm sure these people exist, should raise hell. That's what I think they should do. What they should not do is allow this university and its board and its president to brush this under the rug. This man should not be in this position in the first place, and he should not be allowed to keep this position, in my opinion. Just my opinion. And so I think that students and faculty who do not agree with this, and parents, should let their unhappiness be known, if that's how they feel. I do not think they should let the university return to business as usual. They should not let them pretend that this didn't happen. So I really hope that this will not be the last that we hear of this. I hope that people raise hell. That's what I really hope. I do not want this woman's memory to be erased. I do not want people to forget what happened to her, because I see myself in her. I know what it's like to work in an environment like this. I know what it's like to be harassed and bullied by people and then have them pretend that that's not what they're doing, and then have people tell you that what is happening to you isn't happening, even though you know it's happening. And everyone doesn't have the ability to deal with that mentally. It's hard, it's heavy, and everyone can't deal with it, and they shouldn't have to. And I'm sorry that she's gone, and I'm sorry that she couldn't handle it, and that she decided that this was not something she could take anymore, and that that's the decision that she made. I wish she had made a different decision, but I feel that at the end of the day, her family needs to demand accountability on her behalf if they can. And so I hope that they will. And those of you who are still suffering these kind of work environments, I want you to know that there are other things that you can do. Please don't harm yourself or take your life. No job is worth it. Because as you can see, even when you're gone, they will still pretend they did nothing wrong. Instead, try to get out of that work environment. And if you can make them pay you to go, that's what you should do. But don't stay in it. Don't wait until they fire you. You leave yourself and make them cut you a check on the way out. That's what I did. And trust me, that's the better way to go. But do not stay in these kinds of work environments. They will literally break your spirit if you stay. And that, I believe, is what happened in this case. And I am really, really unhappy about the fact that they're trying to brush this under the rug and make it sound like it's something else. They literally investigated themselves, or trying to absolve themselves of any responsibility, and then lying to the public and saying they did nothing wrong. That's my opinion. And I just don't think people should let them get away with it. So those are my thoughts about this recent report, where this university has decided to basically let itself off the hook, surprise, surprise, and absolve this white man of any responsibility for what it is alleged that he did. I do not believe that this should be the last word on this. And so I hope that other steps will be taken to demand accountability from this university and from its president, from its board, for what happened to Dr. Antoinette Bonnie Candia Bailey. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on what I have shared in this video. I hope that it has been helpful and informative. If you are suffering in a hostile, toxic, or discriminatory work environment, There are things that you can do. As I always say, the number one thing to be doing is to be carefully documenting your work environment, clearly identifying differential treatment and discrimination in that work environment, not just the mean things that they did, but not just what they do, but why you believe that they're doing it. If you believe that why they're doing it is discriminatory and that they're doing it based on your membership in a protected class, then create a strategy to clearly communicate with HR about what is happening to you and what you want them to do about it, up to and including asking them to pay you to leave. I have an online course where I teach people how to ask for an exit from a discriminatory hostile work environment with cash and actually get it. I really urge, if this is your experience in a workplace, that you consider grabbing access to that course and start mapping your strategy to get out of that workplace. It is not worth your mental health. It is not worth your physical health. Get out of these work environments, because as I said, they will literally kill you and then say it was your fault or that they didn't do nothing wrong. And then they'll pay somebody on their board to write a report and say so. I'm Anne-Marie, the anti-HR HR lady. HR is not your enemy, but they are definitely not your friend. But I am. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.